People can't handle it. They just can't handle the chaos. If you can't handle the chaos, you probably shouldn't be in healthcare. Number 3, poor health habits. If you don't schedule vacation, if you don't take a break from email and text to sleep, if you don't take some counterbalance time for your family, then you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be productive, and you're not going to get your one thing done. And then finally, and I hope this is not true, but if it is, you need to let us know. If the environment doesn't support your one thing. So in other words, if you know what your one thing is, you discuss it with your manager or your director or your VP, and then they're not giving you the time to work on it, then we have a problem. The environment is not supporting what you're trying to accomplish, because we have to be supportive of one another. Now, that's not to say that there's not going to be a day that you get interrupted, okay? Where was it? Where was the power outage? Was that St. Pat's yesterday? Yeah, great example, all right? Power outage and none of us are there, right? But there's a power outage, so somebody got to take care of that, right? So there will be interruptions. So there's going to be things that you're going to have to handle, but those should be pretty infrequent. Those should not be the major things. So the question is, can we figure out what our one thing is? You have the book. It's on your table. I want you to take it home, and I want you to read it. I want you to try to figure out what that one thing is. And if you can't figure it out, I want you to call me, because I'll help you. I've already figured out about 10 people's one thing in this room. I've already told one person what their one thing is, or maybe 2. But I'm serious about this, and I'm going to pick on Paul. He's out of the room. Paul, are you here? Yeah, he is. Okay, Paul and I had a conversation the other day, and if you were to ask me what I thought might be one thing that we could do in Southeast Texas to make the biggest difference, and I would get up every day and I'd focus half of my day to accomplish it, it would be to reduce by 50% the out-migration in that community. Because on some of our biggest service lines, 28 to 30% of the people go elsewhere to get their care, not in our service line. We're not taking business away from anybody. We're helping doctors grow their business. It's much easier to keep what's closer to home than it is to try to go get something that you've never had before. Now, I didn't say that was easy. I just said it was a big thing. For somebody else, it might be they're the leader and they should exclusively focus half their day every day on 555, because they set that example and they should wake up every morning with that focus. Another leader, I believe their focus should be physician relationships, and they should be spending 50% of every day building relationships with doctors in their markets. So it's going to be different. It's going to be different for each of you in terms of what it is that you need to focus on. But I think everybody has that one thing. Qua wrote a story recently that he sent out, or shared a story recently that he sent out about the 2 wolves. And I had this in my slides, so I'm going to go ahead and share it with you because I still think it's very important. There's a story, in this case, of a grandfather who quite often at night had the opportunity to tell his granddaughter a bedtime story. And so this particular evening, the granddaughter was pushing for Papa to tell her a bedtime story, and so he agreed that he would do so, and he went with her upstairs. And when they got upstairs, they laid down, tucked her in bed, and he sat on the corner of the bed, and they said, "Let me tell you about the story of the 2 wolves." And he said there were these 2 wolves, and one wolf, represented fear, and the other wolf represented faith. And he said both of those wolves worked hard to build a pack. They recruited from everywhere they could possibly recruit from to build the biggest pack of wolves that they could possibly build. And so you had these 2 pack of wolves trying to take over in a particular area. And the granddaughter asked, well, which pack won? And the grandfather's answer was, the one you feed. So do you feed the wolf of fear, or do you feed the wolf of faith? If you feed the wolf of faith, then you'll find your one thing and you're going to focus on it and you're going to be successful. If you feed the wolf of fear, then you're going to continue to try to multitask, to knock that list off, and you'll never be ultimately successful. So you have to ask yourself, do you have enough faith to say no and to actually try to make that happen? It's a difficult question. It's one that's very, very difficult for most of us to do. I told you that we would say, what would make us successful in 2017? Here are the 10 things. Number one, in growth, and we'll send these out to you. Number one, in growth, we have 4 different things we want to continue to make sure happen. Open Mid-County Ambulatory Center, open the JV Cath Lab and the Surgery Center Cath Lab, complete the Imperial Calcasieu Surgery Center transaction, and then we have a number of primary care clinics that are being built in central Louisiana. We want to make sure that that happens. We also want an NOI, we said, of $77 million. That's our target this year for a group. What are the next ones? We want a contract with Humana for a Medicare Advantage for our CIN. So we're standing up our CIN in Louisiana. We're soon to stand up our CIN in Southeast Texas. And we want a contract with Humana so we can begin managing Medicare Advantage patient population. We don't do that today. We have a contract as a hospital, but we're not really taking any risk. This would be the opportunity for us to take risk. First year will be upside risk only, and then after a few years we would take full risk. We want to hit our ER patient satisfaction score. And honestly, I don't know what that target is today, but whatever that target is that Christus gives us, I hope that somebody in this room believes they can get better and that they hit a higher target. We have to hit our premium labor targets. All of you will be working with Capital Consulting. They've already started working with a couple of regions, but they will be working with everyone. And a part of that process is for us to learn not only to manage productivity, but also to manage the cost of labor. Because in those instances where we're paying premium, overtime, agency, et cetera, then we have to figure out how to get rid of that premium dollar long term to be successful. The next item is no Tier 3 leaders. So if you scored as a Tier 3 leader today, I don't expect that next year. I want 0. If you scored as a Tier 2 leader, then you need to be moving to a Tier 1. There needs to be an expectation that I'm going to improve and that I'm going to work with my team and my department to make that happen. If you don't know where you are on a Tier 1, a Tier 2, or a Tier 3, please make sure that you get with your leadership to have that answer. And then the last of the list, we need to hit our inpatients target, our associate engagement target. We want no reds on Compass, and we want physician engagement at the 75th or better. Some of you are already way up there, but we want everybody to rise, right? We want all tides to rise, so all boats will rise, because we want everybody to be successful. What am I asking you to do? These 5 things. Number 1, I want you to decide what your one thing is. Oh, it didn't come that way, I saw it. Number 1, I want you to define what your one thing is organizationally. Number 2, I want you to define what your one thing is personally. You can apply this same thought process to your physical being, to your spiritual being. What is that one thing you need to do? For example, if health is an issue for you, then your one thing might be, I'm going to get 10,000 steps every day. That's all I'm going to focus on. I probably am not going to eat right, but I'm going to focus on getting 10,000 steps every day, and I'm going to make that my focus, my one thing for me personally. Maybe for you it's spiritual, and you say, I want to get up every morning and I want to read. or I want to reflect, or I want to pray. That might be your one personal thing. Maybe it has something to do with diet or something else for you. Maybe it's, no, we're going to eat as a family every day for dinner, and that's your one thing. What's your one thing personally? Third thing, I want you to continue to celebrate. You know what it felt like when you got up and you got a medal? You know what it felt like when you came up here and Hollis put a gold medal around your neck? Don't you think our associates deserve that same feeling? Don't you think that we should help them celebrate? That article that I gave you told you that the most important thing to me as a worker is to feel like I accomplished something today before I leave. It's just like us in our conversation earlier about, I got to noon and I don't feel like I got anything done. We do not want them to have that same feeling, because if they go home every day feeling like they're not getting something accomplished, or that you're not congratulating them or thanking them or encouraging them, then they're going to be unhappy workers. Kudos points fit into that category. All right? I actually looked at the scores and I looked at the leaders that gave heavy kudo points, and I promise you they had high associate satisfaction. That's not because they bought them off. All right? It's because they got recognized. It's about celebrating the win. So please make sure you celebrate the wins. 2 ideas, every leader, every month. 6 years from now, 2 ideas, every leader, every month. 12 years from now,